What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Vitamin C's. As usual, I'm your boy, Adam Taylor. Find me over at CelticsBlog.com, Heavy.com, OddsChecker.com, and everywhere Celtics basketball lives online. As usual, I'm joined by my boy, my homie, my compadre, my co-host in crime, Mr. Tim Shields from CLNSmedia.com and CelticsBlog.com. Crushing it, living life. How you doing today, Tim?
Doing all right. Looking forward to, by the time you guys hear this, Celtics will be taking on the Grizzlies in a big matchup. But that's kind of a sideline story as we've been kind of dealing with the Jaylen Brown news and just seeing when he's going to get back. And that's what we're going to be delving into today, as well as some awesome news about Ime Udoka.
Ime Udoka has really flipped the script. I put a tweet out. I tell you what, I feel very responsible for this, and no one's gave me my flowers. So I'm giving myself some flowers. And if anybody sees this that saw the tweet, please give me the flowers too, right? So a few days back, I don't know when it was, I think it was over the weekend, I put out a tweet just saying, I don't know about everybody else, but I think that a lot of us owe Ime Udoka an apology. It went for like, I don't know, 4K likes and just had a bunch of interactions. Within 24 hours, podcasts are popping up left, right, and center with the title, Do We Owe Ime Udoka an Apology? Just like, just be like, yeah, we saw Adam's tweet and we thought,
Kind of
maybe.
agree. Kind of
But
agree.
no one referenced me whatsoever. It's okay. I understand. I'll take the victories in the background. Just wanted to throw that out there because it would have been nice to hear someone be like, that Adam's pretty cool. But we'll leave that to the listeners and the viewers because this isn't a podcast, it's a video cast. So we'll leave it to the viewers. So yeah, we'll start off with JB. Big loss in my opinion. This is your second best player on the team. Your number 2 option on offense, one of the most versatile defenders you've got, especially when it comes to guarding wings. When you're coming up against a team that's going to have Triple J, that's most likely going to be put at the 5 to kind of exploit that, Rob Williams playing as a free safety. And then you've got Ja Morant beating guys off the dribble. Marcus Smart notoriously struggles against speedier guards who can beat guys off the dribble. Not that he's not capable of guarding them. They just usually have better performances than guards that aren't speedy and shifty. So I think that Jaylen's really going to be a big miss there, just as a help defender, somebody that can rotate over, hold their own, good length. And then offensively, obviously, it's just going to put more and more on Jason Tatum's 24-year-old shoulders. Happy birthday, JT. But, at the end of the day, Tatum always seems to step up to the plate when it's kind of him and him alone and everything's fine. That's when you see him go for 50 burgers. That's when you see him drop triple dubs on people's heads. And on a birthday as well, I don't think Tatum's coming out here to take an L on his 24th.
No, I definitely don't think so either. I want to say it was Adam Kaufman who put something out about it, talking about, well, it's his birthday, Ja Morant's coming to town. Like, we're talking about like a very hyped up matchup, as it should be. The Grizzlies are a very, very good team, and trying to beat them without Jaylen Brown is going to be tough. We talked about it a little bit before we hopped on, but this is very much one of those meter stick kind of games. Like, this is going to be getting an idea, getting a measurement of how good this Celtics team is in a high pressure matchup, in a game that you really need to win because you don't have that kind of slack. You need to make up ground here in order to try and get higher in the seeding. You need to win any and every game possible. But this is a test game because the Grizzlies are a very good team. Like, hypothetically, if they were in the East, one of the toughest teams you could face. Like, they're that good. Ja Morant is an MVP candidate kind of player, and doing so without Jaylen Brown is gonna suck if we cut it. There's no way to cut it without talking about that. But matter of fact is like, if you can get Jason Tatum there, if you can get Derek White involved, and we talked a little bit about it the other day, but if you can get anything on Aaron Nesmith, if you can get him going, his energy and his defense are there, but you need some kind of shooting presence because outside of Jason Tatum, they're really struggling to find consistent offense. Now is the time to try and find that. And Derek White had a great game against Atlanta, but he's still not a great 3-point shooter. So I'm interested to see how they approach the game offensively. And there's this void now with Jaylen Brown out because he's one of those guys who shoots threes for you. And he actually shoots pretty damn well off there, and he's capable of doing it off ball. But I don't really know how Boston's going to navigate the next few games without him. But fortunately, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a multi-week injury, which is the good news we got today.
Yeah, I mean, for me, so if we look at the game first, the news just dropped that Aaron Nesmith's going to get the start. Makes a ton of sense. You know, keep Derek White in that 6-man role. You keep that continuity with the bench unit. You keep the rhythm going there because that's been quite a productive bench unit. If you're talking about 3-point shooting, what I've accepted at this point is this Celtics team is all about rim pressure. Get to the rim consistently, cause rotations, make defenses adjust to take away the rim, and then feast in the mid range. And if you can hit open guys on the free, then you go for that too. The free that isn't always going to fall, but Rob Williams has been exceptional as an offensive rebounder this year. Even if he's not really getting all of the credit for that, like because a lot of them he kind of slaps away like volleyballs. But at the end of the day, he's still keeping possessions alive. So, you know, when you've got a good offensive rebounder like that, you can kind of live with a subpar 3-point shooting team. But we're talking, what are they, 22nd, 23rd in the league for 3-point percentage? That needs to get pulled up somewhere along the line. When it's talking about Jaylen Brown, missing Brown, I kind of hit on everything to do with that at the very beginning of the show. But I do think that, like, when you look at the way the Celtics defend right now. In fact, let's talk about offense for the moment. So a lot of people are worried about coming up against Steven Adams, right? Like big, strong guy, very good rim protector, plays a bunch of drop, but they run a double big lineup and they put Triple J out there too. So you can do a 1-through-4, switch everything with 5 in drop. We've seen the Celtics run that system a bunch this year. We saw Horford run it a little bit in the last game. They were kind of asking him to drop for certain aspects and then play up to touch on other pieces of play. With Steven Adams, though, what you need to try and do is pull him out to the perimeter and put him in pick and roll actions. Because one of the biggest reasons why I've been so negative on when Celtics fans have wanted to bring in Steven Adams is because I just don't feel like he can flip his hips quick enough to stay with guards coming off the pick and roll. You can manipulate and really punish Steven Adams by putting him in them PNR actions high up on the perimeter and then getting downhill. Now, the downside is then you're going to have Triple J rotating over in a similar free safety role to what Rob Williams will. But at the same time, you're asking Jason Tatum to make that read. 9 times out of 10, he's going to find the open man. You're asking Marcus Smart to make that read. Again, 7 or 8 times out of 10, he's going to find the open man. Let's go Derek White. It's going to be the same thing. 8 or 9 times, he's going to find the open man. When it comes to defense for Boston, one of the downsides is if they do decide to, if the Grizzlies decide to kind of go one big and put Triple J at the 5, well, and then you're going to ask Horford to play up on the perimeter to guard him. But it's going to make life really difficult asking Rob to play that free safety role because you're going to have Ja Morant. Dylan Brooks isn't playing, he's injured, but they've still got Slow-Mo, they've still got Bane. They've got shooters up and down the floor. You can't really afford to play that free safety role too often because they're going to manipulate you. They're going to find spots. If you pull Horford back and play him in drop and do 1-through-4 switching, or you go more zone, you're going to get lit up in the mid-range. Slow-Mo will tear you apart in that mid-range area. Ja Morant will feast on if you give Ja Morant 2-3 feet just so he can get a burst of pace going and then he can like really explode around to the rim. That's what he's going to do, and he's going to do it at an elite level. So I do think that in terms of actual basketball schemes, basketball styles, the way these two teams match up against each other, with or without Jaylen Brown, with or without Dylan Brooks, it's a very good barometer for where the Celtics are now and where they need to be. And then you can just plug and play like, well, if JB was here, what would have been different? But I'm going to stop short of saying if they lose this game, then it shows that they're not at the required level right now because you're missing your second best player. You know, you're missing a player that, like, if I just pull up this clip, you're missing a player like JB that's just going to take guys off the dribble and pull up from the mid-range. You're missing a guy that's going to take guys off the dribble and then hit the lob pass to Rob. You're getting production out of Jaylen that you've never seen before. Stuff that we were on his case about when Tatum was out with COVID. Like, hey, you can't be the first option. And I still genuinely believe that he cannot be the first option. I'm not like backtracking on things I've already said, but he's improved his game from a foundational level since that point. I think that was a very big culture shock to him and a very big realization to him that, like, hey, there are aspects of my game that still need to be tightened up. And he's gone ahead and done that, but he's going to be a big miss.
Yeah, and I think his ability to create for others, and Rob's been great in that regard of just like, yeah, we're gonna throw it up towards the rim and like see what happens. Because if Rob is there, it opens up a lot of offensive avenues, and we've seen him feast on those kind of lobs. But Jaylen specifically has gotten a lot better with his playmaking. He still needs to work on the turnovers, but as of late, I feel like he's been doing a really good job at trying to get control of the basketball there. And he's still learning. I think it's important to acknowledge for both him and Jason Tatum, like they're both still growing and learning. And talking about the Grizzlies matchup, JJJ interests me because he is, as last time I checked, is still the league leader in blocks. And it is interesting when you talk about him playing that free safety role in the same way that Rob is, because Rob is third in blocks because you have another big out there who's able to take over those center duties, and it allows him to roam about the floor and play help defense. So if you're going against a guy like Steve Adams, who's part of that kind of fading era of, he's like towards the tail end of it, because he still has some modern day NBA stuff going for him, but he's part of like that muscly, like big bodied center position kind of player. And I think having JJJ allows you to, make the most out of that situation. And if the Celtics have to play against them tonight, I think you're going to see them try and change it up a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if they do move JJJ to the 5 and you have to play Rob out there. Maybe you see Horford in there and you see Grant at the 4. I don't know if that helps in some ways. I think the speed is there. I think the shooting is there, specifically with Grant Williams. I'm interested to see how Ime Udoka adjusts, because in terms of like a test for the roster, like this is a tough game, but this is also a very tough game in terms of scheme. Like this is a team that you're going to have to try and figure out, how do you contain an MVP talent like Ja Morant? And if you can't, which oftentimes for an MVP candidate, you don't, you figure out other ways to shut the team down around him. I want to see how they manage that. And I think it's going to involve them getting away from that double big lineup, just because I don't know if the speed's going to be there. I don't know if it's going to match up well if JJJ is at the 5. And it's just going to be interesting to see how Udoka goes about that, because I think this is definitely one of those test games in terms of seeing how far he's come as a coach, because he just won Coach of the Month. And interestingly enough, he is the very first Celtic coach to do it in his rookie season, which is insane considering how successful the Celtics have been before and how old of a franchise they are.
So I just want to touch on one more thing about the Grizzlies, and then I'll give you my thoughts on Udoka.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the other things that people tend to overlook when they talk about the Grizzlies, because it's always Triple J, slow-mo, and then you'll have Bane because he's such a good shooter. Some people I know are very big on their backup bigs, kind of like who have we got here? Have they traded him away? No, Tillman, that was who I was thinking of. Some people really like Tillman. Doesn't play all the time, but when he does. But for me, something that doesn't get discussed enough is DeAnthony Melton's ability to lock up on defense. In my opinion, DeAnthony Melton is a top 10 defensive guard in the NBA, possibly top 5. Marcus Smart's obviously in there. You're going to put Pat Bev in there. And then you start to be like, who else is a good defensive guard, And I think DeAnthony Melton's right up there on that second tier below the Marcus Smarts and Pat Bevs of the world. I'm not going to sit here and start trying to think off my dome who I'd put in that top 5 or top 10, because that's very subjective. And, there's not many defensive specialist guards. Mike Conley's going to be up there, obviously. But yeah, DeAnthony Melton is a legitimate defensive presence at the 1 and 2 position. You can slide him up to the 3 a little bit. He can get some buckets. He's very much similar to Marcus Smart. He's going to be trying to attack the rim. His 3-point shot's not fantastic, but it's not terrible either. Like, he can go 60% for games. I think that when you're talking about second units and you're asking if Melton, I would assume Melton picks up Derek White. Derek White could be in for a really tough game because he's going against one of the better defensive guards in the league. When we're talking about Udoka, I mean, this is a coach that, to begin the year, I was like everybody else. I was like, the adjustments aren't there. The rotations are questionable. The lineups don't seem to make much sense. You're talking about playing a passing game, but everybody's going ISO still. You're calling guys out in the media. And I'm not really sold on you being the guy that was sold to us. We were told you were going to be this connector, this guy that was really a motivator, get people on side, get them to buy in. Most of us were wrong. And as I said at the top of the show, I was one of the first to admit it. I put out that tweet. It done well. Some podcasts seem to have spawned off it. Like, I genuinely, whether or not that was because of the tweet, I don't know, but I'm taking the credit. But for me, it's very much like, the dude has proved himself. And one thing that I think a lot of us overlooked, not everybody, but a lot of us, and there'll be people out here that overlooked it that say they never, because, that's just people as humanity. But there was a lot of us, most of us, overlook the fact he was a rookie head coach. He had to learn too. And more importantly, he was taking over a team with real deep-seated bad habits. And he had to try and break those habits before he could instill new ones. And that stuff don't happen overnight. But obviously, when you're thinking, when it's been sold to you that this is the best coaching best coach available that's been hired, and a bunch of teams had interest, a bunch of teams thought he was the best man for the job for whatever roster, you do expect quicker results than what we've seen, especially when you're talking about having two all-star wings, one of the best defensive guards in the league, one of the best up-and-coming rim runners in the NBA, and then Grant Williams turns into PJ Tucker version 2.0. You do start expecting results a little bit quicker than what we've seen them, but I think he's more than deserving of this award. And as you said, it speaks volumes that he's the first rookie coach in Celtics history to win a Coach of the Month award. I think that tells you everything you need to know about the type of run this team's been on. Since the turn of the year, since the Christmas period, this team's really up their game, and Udoka's been a huge part of that.
Yeah, and I've been guilty of it too. I think the way that he handled some of the stuff in the media was really tough in just talking the way that he was about the coaches, in terms of what they were trying to instill in the players, not being receptive of it, calling out players in terms of, hey, I need someone to do this. We need this. And it felt directed at like some of the key guys. But the fact is like it worked. And it took patience, not only from, I'm guessing, the players, as well as Ime and his staff, but also from fans. Like, I think we were really spoiled in terms of watching the Celtics be so good for a while and then have that really tough season with Kemba Walker, with everything happening going on with COVID. And before that, with, Gordon Hayward's ankle being the way it was, and trying to figure out and navigate this new era post Kyrie. It proved really challenging for a lot of people. And I think Brad Stevens got a really tough rap towards the end of his career, and I think all of that sort of left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. And so they expected, once Ime Udoka came in, that, oh, everything's gravy. It's all sunshine and rainbows. Like it's all great. And the reality is like it's not easy to coach in the NBA. It's not easy to play in the NBA. And I think being patient, especially as you're bringing in a brand new coach who needs to establish a brand new system, like it's a major challenge. And I think when we talked about the Celtics earlier on in the season, we were like, same team as last year, same exact issues. And that pays tribute to what you were talking about in terms of breaking those habits. Old bad habits die hard, and it takes a really long time to break those. And that was on top of trying to introduce a brand new system and finding the best way to optimize your main guys in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. So now that the Celtics have gotten on this roll and they're able to carry over this momentum, especially in 2022. They've been one of the best teams in the league, one of the best teams in terms of net rating, in terms of defense. Their offense has gotten a lot better in terms of like their assists. They've been moving the ball a lot more. They've been playing a lot of selfless basketball, would probably be the way I'd put it. So there's an opportunity for them to improve, and I don't think this is their ceiling, but you have to give kudos. You got to tip your cap to Ime Udoka, who, for all intensive purposes, stayed the course. He stuck to what he said he was going to do, which was establishing a defense first. He wanted to keep ball movement. He wanted to really focus on that. And it took its time. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it was overnight, because that also undermines all the hard work that they put in as a cohesive unit. But the fact that he got nominated for this award and he's the first one to do it in Celtics history as a rookie, like, that's a massive step. And if things continue the way they are and the Celtics are able to have a really good record for the rest of the season and they finish, let's say, I'm going to say hypothetically, they finish in the top four. If everything, rolls the right way, I think he has to be in consideration for Coach of the Year. He has to be.
I think that's going, for me, like, that's a bit too far right now.
Fair.
Like, I think that, a Coach of the Month is great. It's a good attaboy type of thing. Like, you've done a really good job, we noticed, type of like agreement there. What Coach of the Year, like, for me, they'd have to find a way to get up to the top two. After the start of the year they had, if you finish in the third, second, or first seed, then I'd be calling for Coach of the Year too, because this was a team that was severely limited offensively with their lack of 3-point shooting. They've overcome multiple bouts of injuries, multiple bouts of being wiped out by COVID, and I know other teams have too. I know, and it's definitely unfair to think that Boston were the only team that have struggled. I mean, you look at Milwaukee; they were without their starting like big three for most of the year. Miami have had their issues. The Lakers are just an issue right now, like period, not in a good way. The Warriors are dealing with things that have come and gone all season. So other teams, and then you've got the bad teams that have also been hit, but they're bad anyway, so it makes no difference. But when you're looking at the teams that were meant to contend, every last one of them have had injury problems. So to say that Udoka navigated it well is fair. To say that he navigated it better than other coaches, I think that's questionable. Because he just didn't have the experience necessary to do so. The Heat remained ultra competitive without some of their best players for long periods of time. The Bucks remained competitive without their big three for periods of time. The Bulls are doing it now without Lonzo and Caruso. Granted, it's not sickness, it's not COVID, but they're injuries. But Udoka done the best he could while still learning on the job. And I think that the future looks bright now, and I think a lot of people are more comfortable and more confident in Udoka being the long-term coach than they were 4 months ago. And that in itself, considering how low so many people were on him, it is a victory in itself.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with that. And it was funny that you mentioned the Bucks as well as, sorry, what was the other team you had mentioned? You were
The
talking about
Heat, the Bulls.
Bucks and so specifically the Bucks and the Heat. They have two guys who have won Coach of the Year, Mike Budenholzer and Eric Spoelstra. And you could argue, and I mean, I think it's a really strong argument that Eric Spoelstra is currently the best coach in the league.
That's
Like
not an argument, that's a fact.
Okay, well then I don't feel that crazy in saying it, but Eric Spoelstra is a fantastic coach, and if Ime Udoka can be in that airspace as a rookie coach, even be in that same kind of conversation, that is a huge step in the right direction. It's not to say that Brad Stevens wasn't a good coach, because he was, but if you can find a different gear with some of these guys that you've had as part of your core for a few years, as a rookie coach, like you can come in and find a different gear for this team, for that trio of Smart, Brown, and Tatum. That is like tremendous. And like we just have to see what's going to happen down the stretch. And I think that's really going to determine where that conversation goes. I think you're right in the sense of if they finish in the top two, like you have to take that Coach of the Year candidacy for Ime Udoka seriously.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's also just like, that's a huge ask. As you said, like they struggled with injuries, they struggled with COVID, and a lot of the leagues struggled with it, but I think the Celtics still might have led in terms of COVID absentees.
Oh,
And
dude.
it's ugly. I mean, you're signing Joe Johnson to a 10-day because you just need warm bodies. You're talking about signing CJ Miles. Like they were really in that much of a pinch that they had to figure out, who they're going to throw out in the rotations. But this is kind of like the new landscape, and I don't know if that kind of changes things in terms of how you vote for teams, in terms of coaching and that kind of thing. But I guess the way that I would look at it, and I'll close on this, I think Ime Udoka has definitely earned a lot more respect and a little bit more leniency, a little bit more wiggle room, I guess, in terms of how the Celtics wrap up this year and going forward, like being able to say, hey, you know what, like we're just going through growing pains. We're going through this spot right now, but we're going to figure it out.
Through changes.
Oh,
Anyway,
that's a good song.
yeah. For me, like the last thing I'll say is this: the Celtics really had Udoka out there doing a Uncle Drew kind of run, like looking for the wing, looking like going and finding the oldest wing they could possibly find that's still got a little bit of game to just keep everybody entertained. Joe Johnson, let's go get you. You're in your 40s. You come, you can lace them up. Your sneaker's probably older than some of the fans in the entire arena. And then we're gonna go get CJ Miles. You're old too. We're gonna get some cod liver oil capsules. We're gonna keep you guys fresh for a few days, and then we're gonna see what's what. So like, it really did feel like, you remember the card before Uncle Drew dropped. Do you remember? And it was like they'd done the different Pepsi adverts, and it was searching for the big man, searching for the shooter, searching for the I felt like that's what they had to do. I was waiting to see Robinson come. I was like, bring back some of the old guys, bring Shaq back for a day or two. Anyway, he's too busy getting knocked out though, so that was why he didn't play. He got took out. He was tooken. Hadouken. That anyway, I can joke all day and it's not fair to people. So we're gonna call it quits there. As usual, if you've enjoyed the show, and subscribe. If you're already subscribed, do not think that there is nothing you can do to help us more, because there is plenty to do. When you're at Donkeys and you see people talking about the Celtics, go and tell them, yo, you should check out the vitamin C's on YouTube from my boy Adam Taylor, NBA, and my boy Tim Shields, NBA. You can tell people, if you're not in Donkeys, maybe you don't drink coffee. In that point, you probably don't live in or around Boston, or anywhere civilized, I'm guessing. But I'm just saying, right? Like, I don't.
Call it how you see it, man.
Yeah, dude, I have my donkeys imported. I don't know what people are talking about no donkeys. Maybe you prefer to sail boats. Well, tell your yacht salesman that he should be listening and watching the vitamin C's. Maybe you got a dog walker that's a big Celtics fan. Tell the dog walker, hell, tell the dogs. The dogs can go back and tell the owner. Send little notes in their collars. Like, there's so many different ways. Word of mouth, if anyone's ever done advertising, word of mouth is the number one way to help something grow quickly. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to grow with y'all. We love all of the comments, love all of the people reaching out when we haven't posted in a hot minute. People reach out to see where we're at. That's touching, man. We appreciate that. If we can grow quicker and we can get to a point where, I just want 1,000 subs, everybody. I just want to see 1,000.
It's a small ask.
It's a small. Then we'll start asking for 2 and 3. But let's start with 1.
Let's not get greedy. Let's just
the more you help us, the more I'll start putting out more content.
Taper expectations.
Until then, we'll catch you later in the week. Let's hope we get this W against the Grizzlies. And if we don't get the W, let's not overreact too much. We are playing without Jaylen Brown. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Cheers.